Hello, everyone. This is yet another episode of Career Talks by Welcome Solutions. And in these meetings, we talk with bold people with academic education who are now developing interesting careers and are willing to share some life advice with us. And today I have great pleasure to introduce Dr. Matthias Hombauer. He has a PhD in molecular biology, but decided to follow his passions, namely music and photography, and became a self-taught rockstar photographer. After his two kids were born, he decided to become a stay-at-home dad and build the most significant online community of concert photographers around the world from his bedroom. In his latest project, Datpreneur, Matthias is inspiring underdads to turn their passion into a profitable business while gaining precious time for the family. Great to have you, Matthias. I'm very excited for this episode. You did such your career is so diverse. I'm really impressed with what you do. And I would like to now give a floor to you so that you can tell your story from your own perspective.
Thank you so much, Natalia, for having me. It's such a pleasure. And it's so great to do this interview here or this talk with you, especially for PhD students or people who are in the academic career, because this is how I started out. And I just want to tell you a little bit about myself and my story and what happened in the last 15 years or so. And for this, I guess the best way would be if I share my screen and show you some slides. So you can see the slides, right, Natalia? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so as Natalia said already, my name is Matthias Hombauer. I'm based in Vienna, Austria. And this is where it all started at Dr. Borgasse, where I studied molecular biology. I studied there for about 5.5 years and doing then my master's there. And I was really excited about this study because it was about microbiology and immunology and all this stuff that's going on in our bodies. And I was really interested in this. And I really liked the studies. It was really cool, enjoyed the time, especially the internships I did during my studies. So I went for 6 weeks to Hamburg, for example, and then I went 2 months to the Salk Institute in San Diego in La Jolla. This is one of the most prestigious institutes for biology, and it gave me a glimpse on how cutting edge research is working, and it was totally different from Vienna, honestly speaking. So because they have a lot of money, and probably we can talk about later, but everything seems to be easier there because you get the funds, you have all the cutting edge research there. And it was really competitive. And for 2 months, I really worked my ass off. But the cool thing was I knew that after 2 months, I'm gone and I'm home again. But I saw how hard these guys are working there. And this was already the first glimpse on how a PhD thesis or a postdoc thesis can be, or a postdoc job. So that's me in 2008 as a PhD student at the Institute of Immunology in Vienna. When I started out, I wanted to win the Nobel Prize. I was highly motivated. Everything worked out well in my diploma thesis. The diploma thesis I also wrote in the same lab. So I thought maybe that's cool because then I can just continue my research there. And what happened was that I also got a prestigious stipend from the Schering Stiftung in Berlin. And for a biologist, a molecular biologist, a biochemist, if you get such a stipend, then your future is already set because this stipend will open a lot of doors for you if you stay in the academic career. So this was already a good sign that I will stay, or I wanted to stay in the academic career. And the other good thing was that I got funded by the Schering Stiftung. So I got my money every month. I was a free PhD student for my boss. So he didn't have to didn't have to pay me, which gave me a little bit more freedom to move because I was not really dependent on the money from the lab. So this was a good thing. However, after 2 years or so, this happened, and probably some of you know about it, PhD comics. So this might be for the guys in the biology field. And this curve totally describes what's happened, because in the first place, you want to win the Nobel Prize. Well, here I come. You're new to your PhD thesis. You think you can rule the world. And after a couple of years, you hope to have pepperoni pizza at the happy hour. And that's totally what happened to me. I got frustrated. The projects were really long. I worked for 4 years on one project. And I mean, luckily I got a little paper out in the end. And by the way, I finished my PhD after 4.5 years. That's the good thing. But I really got disillusioned how research is working in this field. And I mentioned it before with the Salk Institute. So it's totally different in the US and in this kind of labs, because they have a machine where you just get your chemicals, get your antibodies, and that's it. And you can go there every time. And here in Austria, you needed to fill out forms. You needed to wait for a month until your boss gave you the money to order some reagent. And so this was really, if you want to be on the cut edge research, I thought then you need to go to this really prestigious institute. But the problem is then you have to work your ass off. I have seen people there working 70, 80 hours in the lab. We went to a concert, and after the concert at 2 a.m. in the morning, they went back to the lab because they had to feed their cells. And this was not really for me. And so somehow my body already told me I need to find something else, because I always had this feeling when I woke up in the morning, is it really the right way? Is this what I want to do for my whole life, or should I do something different? But the question was, what should I do differently? Because I studied already 5 years. I did my diploma thesis. I was in my PhD thesis for 2 years. So this is a long time, right? And all of my colleagues around were frustrated and depressed as well, but no one had any clear answer what to do. And so it took me about 2 years, more likely, waking up with this weird feeling in my gut and saying to me, hey, that's not what you want. You need something different to be happy in life. And so I started to think a little bit what really excited me or excites me. And so you can see little Matthias here on the left. That's a 3-year-old, already with the headphone of my dad. And I was listening to his vinyl collection. And then a little bit later on, with 13 or 14 years old, I played in my first death metal band. I had such long hairs, and this was a cool time as well. So music always played a big and important role in my life. And so here I was. During my PhD thesis, there was music that I really liked. And at the age of 28, I also started to get a digital camera and started to photograph some random stuff like flowers and landscapes and some portraits. And somehow I figured out that music and photography would be a cool mix. And there is a story, I always tell it, it's still a little bit esoteric for me. I now understand what it was, but I was cycling with my bike to work every day. It was about 35, 40 minutes drive. And one morning I was driving to or cycling to my work again. And then all of a sudden, an inner voice told me, Matthias, why are you not combining music and photography and become a concert photographer? And the crazy thing was, I never thought about concert photography, nor did I know what it is, or if this is really a job. So once I went to the lab, I typed in Google concert photography, and boom, here it was. There were some people around the world, most likely in the US, who were concert photographers and who were writing about how to become one. And hearing this story again or telling this story again, I think what spoke to me was my unconsciousness trying to tell me, hey, you have to figure something out. And if music and photography is your passion, why not combining those two? And so I decided, after I finished my PhD thesis, I held it in my hand and said, okay, here's my PhD thesis. I have the kind of safety net. If something is not working out with the photography job, I can always go back to the molecular biology job, to academic career, or start a job in a boring job in a pharma company probably. Or I try to figure out how to become a concert photographer. And so this is what I did. Basically, as a concert photographer, you're in front of the stage of a concert of the band, and you have 3 songs time to shoot the best photos. And if you get lucky and you are with the band, or you work with the band, you can be on stage as well. So I was one of the personal photographers of the Prodigy. Here are a couple of photos from one of their albums, and they also did the last promo shot before Keith Flint took his life. So they are not anymore. Then I took photos of almost everyone that I find interesting and I like. So this is Miley Cyrus. I don't really like her music, but the show was really great. I took photos of Metallica, of Foo Fighters, of Iron Maiden. I went to Saudi Arabia to shoot the biggest festivals there. This is DJ Marshmello, for example. And here is also Wiz Khalifa from the Saudi Arabia shoot. And this was kind of crazy because I went there 5 times. They flew me in from Thursday to Sunday, from Vienna to Saudi Arabia and back. And it somehow happened that I also was shooting Usher, the famous R&B artist, in the desert, like a private 4-hour desert shooting in Saudi Arabia. And then 2 days later, I was back in Vienna with my family, and it was kind of, holy, what's going on? I mean, is this just a dream, or is this really happening? So this is what happened with this whole concert photography thing. And I just wanted to say, I have no certification in photography. I didn't attend any courses, so this is all kind of self-learned by trial and error. I was working for Instagram and shooting one of the biggest festivals in France, in La Rochelle, which was really cool. I was doing an exhibition with other international concert photographers in Buenos Aires. So I flew there. We opened our gallery show for a couple of days, and then I flew back. And then I became a father, and this is me. And Mia is my daughter. She's already 4.5 years old, and Noah, he's becoming 2 years old in January. And this is my beautiful and awesome wife, Lynn. And thanks to her, because otherwise nothing would work. So that's a huge part of the success story, I would say. Yeah, and I started to think again, what is really the important thing in my life? Do I want to be a rockstar photographer for my whole life? Do I want to go on tour with bands, which I did, for a month or even for years? If you are lucky and you can tour with famous bands like Guns N' Roses or Bon Jovi or Aerosmith, they will have huge tours, and you will be on the road all the time. And I figured out, for me, I wanted to stay at home and wanted to be there for my kids and want to see them growing up. And there are a lot of stories. If you read biographies of Steve Jobs or other guys who really regret that they didn't spend the time with the family in the beginning. So probably they were rich, probably they were really successful in their career, but most likely something was missing, and this was the family part. And I didn't want to become such a guy. And so at this time, a friend of mine gave me the book The 4-Hour Work Week from Tim Ferriss, and maybe some of you know about it, maybe some don't. So I just want to give you a brief overview what he says or what it is. So the 4-Hour Work Week from Tim Ferriss most likely propagates a new model of the so-called new rich, and new rich meaning not in money but in time. And what he propagates is kind of, it would be a cool thing if you can independently do your work and earn money. So for example, I shot a couple of weddings as well as a photographer. And if I'm shooting a wedding for 8 hours, then I will get paid for 8 hours, X amount of money. If I shoot for 12 hours, then I will get paid more money. The problem is I will also spend more time. And so the more time you spend, probably the more money you get. And I know a lot of friends in companies in management positions. Sure, they get a shitload of money, but they work their ass off for 70 to 80 hours a week, and they don't have time for anything but just their work. So the idea of the whole concept is get a job probably, or build your own business, like an online business, and sell for example, courses there. And if you do this, you record the course once, and then you don't have to be all the time in front of your computer, and you can sell those courses. So this is just an example. You can also do, affiliate marketing. You can do shipment by Amazon and sell your stuff there. So there are a lot of ideas and ways you can do it. But in principle, it's like becoming independent from time and earning money. So I thought, that might be an interesting project for me as well. So I wanted to stay at home with my family and with my kids. I want to see them grow up. I don't want to tour with those bands and hang up in all those weird clubs anymore. But I have this passion for concert photography, and probably other people are also interested in learning how they can also become a concert photographer. So I started a project called howtobecomearockstarphotographer.com. Very obvious, very long URL, but it worked out. So I started with writing some guest articles in big photography blogs and magazines about how I got started and what I have learned and the best camera tips and settings for concert photographers and so on. And from there on, I wrote an ebook and sold it on my page. And I saw, hey, cool, I can sell an ebook for a PDF. It was like 70 pages for $80, which would be impossible if you do this on Amazon. There are millions of books, but no one is selling a PDF, 70 pages for like $80. But it worked for me. And so I thought maybe I can do a video course. And so I recorded a video course, and I sold it for like $400. And this is what really shifted the needle, and I could make an income of selling online courses about how to become a rockstar photographer. And I built the most, let's say, not the biggest, but the most important concert photography community worldwide from my bedroom. So with over 6,000 newsletter subscribers, and my blog reached already people in 100 plus countries. I generated, or I built an Instagram hashtag called HDBarb, short for how to become a rockstar photographer. Awful name. If you tell a marketer this, he will slap you in the face, because that's what's this word? No one can remember it. But it seems it worked, because I just ask some of my guys or community members if they want to tag their concert photos with my hashtag, and maybe we can get a couple of hundred photos and build an awesome concert photography Instagram gallery. And all of a sudden we are reaching like 476,000 and more photos, which is just crazy. And then I also did a podcast. I wanted to learn from the best, because I also started with the beginner's mindset. And yeah, I was kind of not famous, but people knew me in the music photography industry, but there were way other people who were more important than me. And so I decided to start a podcast, and over the range of 2.5 years, I did a weekly show. So every week I published a podcast interviewing the world's best music photographers, including guys who were on tour with Queen or Led Zeppelin in the 70s. I interviewed Baron Wallman, who just died a couple of days ago. He was the first Rolling Stone magazine photographer who took photos in Woodstock and so on. So all these awesome guys. And I learned a lot. And I learned that I don't want to be a rockstar photographer anymore because most likely it's either it's your life and you're just on tour shooting the bands, or you don't have any family. So most likely those guys don't have family and kids. So probably the same like PIs. I don't know. Yeah, and the newest project is more likely how to help dads to balance their life and work better, because I know how stressful it can be, especially if you have kids at home, you have your stressful life. And I experimented a lot in the last years and found a way that worked for me, or it's working for me, like, installing good habits and implementing little things that are easy and fast to implement in your lifestyle, but will give you a lot of benefits for yourself and also for your kids and for your family. Yeah, so this was my story so far, and what I would like to share with you also is what I found out is really important to live your dream project. So probably in general, say, be happy in life. And I think one of the main the main pillars in my life that gives me satisfaction is to live my passion. And I just want to get in a little bit more detail what passion is, because as I said, I knew a lot of people, or I know still a lot of people who are doing the PhD thesis, who are doing their postdocs already, and they are not really happy with what they're doing, but the path already narrowed, because if you're doing like 5 years or 6 years of studying, then 5 years of a PhD, then you do 5 years of postdoc, probably 2 postdocs, or 5-6 years, then you're in the middle of your 30s or beginning of your 40s, and you walk this path, and there is kind of no turning back. But what I want to say is there is always a turning back. It's just you need to know what your passion is. And a lot of people simply don't know, because if you say to people, hey, what's your passion? What do you like? They say, yeah, traveling, or go to a cinema or something like this. And that's maybe something that you're curious about or that you like, but that's not really a passion that you can build a living on. So what I like to show you here is these 3 words that are interconnected. And I find this really interesting, and I think that's true how it works. So there is first a curiosity for something, then it follows into passion, and then it's a purpose. And just as a short example, so for example, you like to play the guitar, you're curious about playing the guitar, you get a guitar from a friend, or you can probably rent it, and you play around. And yeah, probably you like it. It's really hard in the beginning. It doesn't sound great. You get a little bit frustrated, but still you have fun with it. And if you stick to it because you're really into it, something feels like that's something that interests you. It can get into a passion, and into a passion, it's like you're waking up in the night and just thinking about playing guitar and which riff you can play. You're trying to form a band. You're playing every day for hours, and then if you see the purpose, like, okay, I want to be a rock star because this band really inspired me, and I love what they are doing, and this is what I want to do. My purpose was, for example, with the PhD thesis, that I wanted to heal the world because I was into immunology. but it turned out differently. And then there was another purpose, like my kids were born and my kids became the purpose. So it's shifting. It's not like you decided once in your lifetime and that's it. It's really flexible. And what you have seen from my story, it shifts a lot. And this is something, I guess, that comes naturally, because as we get older, your focus shifts, your curiosity shifts, what you like shifts. I was always into, brutal Quentin Tarantino movies, and now since I'm a dad, I can't watch them anymore. It's like I start to cry if I see a drama or a love story. So that's totally different. And so I guess what's important is this curiosity, passion, purpose can shift. So it's not like you're set from the beginning of your life until the end of your life. What's also important is that you know your why. So maybe you have heard this before. There is a famous book from Simon Sinek called Start with Why. Most people talk about what they are doing, and this holds also true for companies. So the company will tell you what we are doing or what do you do. I'm doing my PhD. I'm a molecular biologist, whatever. And then how do you do what you do? So that's most likely the technique. Okay, I'm using this technique in the lab. I'm doing this. I'm using these camera settings. And in the inner circle, it's like, why do you do what you do? And what's the purpose? And that's the important question that not many people are answering or can answer, because they're not thinking about it. So what drives you? What keeps you awake at night? For me, the biggest purpose now, as I said, are my kids. And this is a really, really important purpose, and I think a strong purpose. But it doesn't need to be your kids. It can be whatever it is, but you need to find it. And why it's so important is because there will be a lot of stones in your way if you want to pursue your dreams. So there will be people who don't support you. There will be projects that don't work out well. There will be paths that you go that will end strictly or abruptly, and you will need to get back a couple of steps. Maybe you find out that's not your passion, that was just a curiosity, and maybe it shifts again and you start again. And so in order to overcome all these obstacles, it's important to know your purpose and why you are doing this. For example, the podcast was a lot of work. So doing 100 interviews in a weekly show for 2.5 years in a row is a lot of work. And my purpose was I wanted to do 100 interviews and then writing a book about it, about the key findings, and kind of have this book in hand where I say, okay, this is what I've done. If someone is interested in concert photography, here you can learn from the best. Here is the thing. I'm still in the process of writing it, but this was kind of the purpose. And if you have a purpose, then it's getting easier. And for the last slide, I don't know if you know this method or the structure here. It's called Ikigai, from Japanese reason for being. And I think this sums it up really well. So in the center, you have this Ikigai, the reason for being, why you're here on Earth. And then you have these other cycles. And you have on top what you love. What do you love? There is the passion and your mission. So this is the mission or the purpose. Then what the world needs, on the right side, there is your mission and your vocation. Then what you can be paid for, this is your profession, and what you're good at. Again, passion and profession. If you find something that interacts with all these cycles, doesn't need to be all of them, but just that you get an idea, then you're on a good way, I guess, to have, or to that you found your purpose, that you found your passion, and it's way easier to work on projects where you're passionate about than just to work for money, for example. And I guess that's the short presentation, and I will go back here and look forward to discuss things with you, Natalia.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Matthias, for your presentation. Excellent one. And actually,
Thank you.
My first question would be, this is actually some easy question that I just got once you were talking about passion. since I think many people, not only PhDs, but also people without PhD, I think many people have that issue that they don't really feel that fire for anything. So, in your model, if I,
it's not my model, but
well, in your approach, to get to the purpose, you have to go through this step of defining your passion or finding your passion. So what would you advise, what would you say to those who don't really feel that fire at the moment for anything?
That's a good question. And I think so many people, as I said, don't know what their real passion is. There are different approaches. So what I heard once from Steve Kotler, for example, was that you make a list of like 20 things that you like. It's guitar playing, it's you want to paint, or you want to write a novel, or whatever it is. You write this down, like 20 or 25 things, and then you search for interactions or overlaps. So maybe you can, you like photography and you like fashion. So maybe you can start as a fashion photographer, and you need to start from this point where probably you will try a lot of things. So maybe you still don't know what your passion is, but maybe you're curious about knitting, for example, or cooking, and maybe you just have to try it out and see if this sticks to you. And this is what I've done my whole life. So I tried playing the guitar, which worked great. I had a band for 5 years, but then somehow I wasn't interested in it anymore, and I just stopped it. Then I started playing ultimate frisbee in a team, and then I did it a couple of months for like training 4 days a week, and then I stopped it because I felt that's not really my thing. And what's important is that you're really open-minded with this approach, or with this experiments, because what I have felt was, you start something and then all of a sudden it slows down and you're not interested anymore, and then you start to think, hey, what's wrong with me? I chose to study molecular biology because this is what I wanted to do, and now I'm here 9 years later and I'm not interested in it anymore, and now I want to change. And a lot of people told me, most likely lab colleagues and my boss, they said, hey, you're crazy. I mean, what are you doing? You have this stipend and you can go everywhere where you want, and you can do your postdoc in America and probably at the Salk Institute. And by the way, I know a guy who is now at the Salk Institute. He's doing now his postdoc for 5 years, and there is no result at all, and he's frustrated. So it doesn't mean just that you're on a prestigious institute that you get famous, or you get rich anyhow. I think you can't get rich as a researcher if you don't have your own company and selling some patents or something. But I guess the most important thing is trying things out until something sticks.
That's a very, very good advice. Actually, my feeling is that many PhDs at the end of their PhD journey, they have an issue with finding their passion, also because of frustration and because of the overload with work and all these mental aspects of finishing a PhD. And my feeling is it's hard to really find your passion if you cannot really listen to the voice of your intuition, and the voice of your intuition will not speak loud enough if you're stressed, if you undersleep, if you are frustrated. So it's really hard to, in that particular period of time, it's very hard to really have this objective view, sober view at yourself, and that's one confounder that doesn't make it any easier. And the second thing is, even if you feel that passion, then it has to be, you have to have some skill that sells, right, to make it your job. And I think in your case, you were blessed to have so many talents, and you are also working on your own to develop those talents early in your career. So at that stage, when you took a decision to turn this into profession, then you were at this level where you could actually start charging for it. So actually relating to this chart for Ikigai and what it is that you showed in the end, you had some skill in your hand that people are willing to pay for, and this is sometimes hard because yeah, many people like cooking, many people like, you know, the things that most people like. Yeah, you like hanging out with friends, but how to monetize this, right? So it's really, I think in your case you had really, maybe, you know, in your case you never planned for this, but eventually it was a good circumstance that you had some skill in your hand that you could actually turn into a profession straight away. Yeah.
I totally agree. So I think there are two parts of this this question. So first of all, I agree. It's really hard if you're in this PhD, let's say, universe where you have to, sorry, where you really have to work hard, and all you do is kind of reading papers and doing your experiments, at least in the biology field, but probably also in other fields. And you don't really have time for doing something different. Probably a happy hour, and then you go home to sleep. But how I started the whole thing was I just did it, and it was hell of work because I went to concerts on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at some times, and you know, going to a concert like at 8 p.m. and then shooting the concert, developing the photos at home on the computer, going to bed at 3 a.m. and then being in the lab again at 9 a.m. the whole day. So I really sacrificed most likely my my research work. So I got really lousy, I have to say. I was not a good researcher anymore because all my focus went into photography. And what saved me was the stipend because I got the money. So probably if my boss had to pay me, probably he just would have fired me. But since I was a free worker, a free student for him, this was a little bit easier for me. And the second part is, as you said, I built this business already during my PhD thesis. It took me like 2 years to build it. And when I finished, I had the feeling that I can survive as a photographer, shooting weddings, shooting for news magazines, shooting portraits, whatever it was. So this was a crucial step, and I wouldn't advise anyone to quit his job from one day to another and then say, hey, let's write a cookbook and sell some, and then sell the book and make a living out of it. So you really have to be cautious what you're doing. And luckily it turned out for me, I guess, because concert photography is a really niche market. So there are a lot of concert photographers, but there are really a handful, I would say, people worldwide who are writing about how to do it properly. And so therefore the niche is the key. If you want to write a general cookbook, you won't survive. If you want to write a blog about fitness in general, you won't survive. You need to become a specialist in one niche, and being it, you know, vegan breakfasts that you can do in 2 minutes, something like this. It needs to be specific, and it needs to be for a niche market, because otherwise there are so many big players and no one will recognize you.
Yeah, that's a great advice, indeed, and yeah, that's I have nothing to add. I couldn't agree. And actually, yeah, so actually, could we now briefly go back to the times of your PhD
Sure.
and to all your projects, because I have some questions.
Sure.
So firstly, since your like area of activities, professional activities changed so much since your PhD, like it's quite unusual, right, to move from molecular biology straight to photography and then to being a professional dad. Then I would ask you, do you ever have some in hindsight have some thoughts about, you know, was your PhD even useful for you in any way? Would you do PhD again if you had a chance? And And if you see any real world consequences of your PhD on your life right now?
Good question. So I'm someone who has no regrets at all. So I would say I don't regret doing this PhD. It taught me a lot. Probably not the, or it's not important for me like the specific field I was working as a PhD. Sure, I was in this immunology field, and I was working with basic research on how CD8 T cells are working. That's not the thing that kind of traveled with me to my current life. But I think what really helped me is to have this endurance to survive a PhD, like doing a project for 4 or 5 years, having all these challenges, all these obstacles, being it a journal club that you hate because you didn't have any time to prepare for it, and then you need to do a journal club and you have no idea what you're talking, and there will be nasty questions from professors because obviously they know more about this. So I hated this. Or doing a lab meeting and again showing that you have no results at all because you did the experiment 3 months or for 3 months and you did it 5 times, and 2 times it was positive, 2 times it was negative, 1 time it didn't work out, and you don't know what to say after 3 months if this experiment worked. So I would say what really helped me also in this stadium now where I'm at is this learning about this endurance and know, okay, even projects can be or get a result if you stay long enough on it. And I think that's also important for having a startup or working on your dream projects or living your passion. There will always be challenges, and I mean everything seems so perfect, right? I mean, some people say that's a Hollywood story, and you moved from molecular biologist, became this kind of famous rockstar photographer. But it was a journey, and there were a lot of challenges. There were a lot of failures. It's just the mindset that you need, that you have this passion, that you say, okay, it didn't work out. I tried differently. Okay, it didn't work out. I'm on my floor again. I don't know, can I get enough money to pay the rent for the next month? And all of a sudden, next day you get an email with a new job and say, okay, let's move on from here. So, and that's the importance of having a purpose, because this will save you in these hard times. You need to know why you're doing this. If it's just, I like cooking, yeah, a lot of people like cooking, but what drives you? And so I think that's important.
Yeah, actually, again, fully agree. And my feeling is that actually for most PhDs, when they report about what was the main gain from their PhD, they most often say that it's more of soft skills and perseverance that they build up to, rather than the particular knowledge that they gain during their PhD. So I feel that too. So exactly. I fully agree. And in business, that's very useful indeed. And actually, if I can add something to this picture, I also feel that PhD, it's so typically so challenging that it also shifts your perception of what is hard, actually. So what a hard project means. And I have to say, actually, I did 3 different masters before my PhD, but they were nowhere near to the level of difficulty of my PhD. And actually, my PhD was pretty much undoable. So I got a problem that after 1 year, I realized that this is undoable, pretty much undoable project. But yet still, I had to stay on this project, and I was struggling with it for another few years. And now, when people ask me, is it difficult to run a company, and is it difficult to write a book or whatever, like whatever I do, I always feel like, well, comparing to doing something that is mathematically impossible, then everything
that is quite easy.
Yeah, and now I feel like if something is possible, then it's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, and it's also short term. Like, I mean, writing a book probably takes you 2 months, 3 months, maybe a year or maybe 2 years, but it's nothing near like working 6 years for a project where you don't know what's the outcome. And this is what I really didn't like in the end. If I write the book, I know, okay, it takes time, but then I have an end result, and this is how I want to have it. But with the PhD thesis in biology, it's like, okay, here's your hypothesis, let's test it out. And if it's not true after 6 years, then it's not true. I mean, it's no one's fault, and you don't have a paper. Probably you don't even get your PhD. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, but like I agree with all your points, and now actually I'd like to talk more about your businesses. So like, we have a question from the audience. Melissa is asking, how did your research experience help you build your own businesses?
I think, as we said, this endurance part, but also experimenting. It's also with the business. I also started this business from zero. I had no idea how to program a homepage. I had no idea how to build the community, how to start an email newsletter, how to record a video course, how to sell a course, and how to record a podcast. It took me like a year, I guess, to figure out how to start a podcast and how to do it. And so I think from my research work, what I took from it was like how to experiment, or how to set up experiments and also stick to it. So what I did is like, you're searching for something on Google. My friends always tell me it's like you're still a researcher because you want to figure something out. And I have this kind of approach of, getting to the best sources, being it the best mentors, the best teachers, having a look at 3 or 4 different angles, and then build my view about it. And so this really helps, because if you start something new and you have no idea, you can just move on by trial and error. And you try it and you figure out that's not working, and you get another tool and you figure out tool number 1 is not compatible with tool number 2 to build an online business or email newsletter. So you try something different. And I guess this really helped, at least to know a little bit how to properly execute experiments. And it's not like, okay, I've tried something out, I'm failing, that's not for me, and I just leave, because this is not how it's working. And therefore I also like more the mindset of the startup culture in the US, that say, okay, if you want to learn something new, you need to fail first. And not like here in Austria or in Germany, where it's, okay, you have one shot, try it out. If it's not working out, you're a loser, don't do it anymore. And so it's all about trial and error, and being there in the long term. There is a nice quote which says, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, grind hard every day. And that's exactly what it is. If you stay for a long period of time in one field, your chances to be successful may be a lot bigger than just doing it short term.
Mm-hmm. And actually, when you as you said, you turned your passion into a purpose, and then you turned your purpose into a job with music and photography. Did you ever experience this Ouroboros effect? What I mean by that is, it's often the case that when people actually monetize on their passion, then all of a sudden they have to start thinking in these business terms, and they have to actually become very practical about what they are doing. And what often happens is this level of satisfaction gradually drops, because all of a sudden you have to start making compromises on your art or whatever you feel passionate about. And did you ever have that? Did it ever happen to you?
That's a good point. So I would say a lot of creatives struggle with this, especially I know from the photography community, because they want to create art. You want to take photos, you want to create art, but if it's about business, the business side, everyone is like, oh, I don't want to touch money, I don't know how to do it, I don't want to sell my work, because that's not me, I want to be just an artist. And that's the wrong way to do it, I would say. what you need to be is open-minded also for the business side. And it's hard in the beginning. I had no clue how to market myself. But what I have learned is you need to find a balance between, doing jobs that you need to survive, that you really don't want to do, but probably you need to pay your rent next month and you need to do it, and jobs that you love to do, which are high priced, well paid, and you love to do. And this is kind of finding the balance. And I always tended to do the jobs that I really like, even though you have to say no. And that's a skill you need to learn. So that's a mindset. Saying no to something is hard in the beginning, because if you say no to a client, your brain will start, or your mind will start jumping. Okay, you said no to this client. Maybe you don't get any job from him anymore. Okay, what should you do? You need the money. But if you stick to it and you believe in yourself, and you have a positive mindset and everything, then it always turned out that there will be another job that I really love, and that keeps me like above the water, so to speak. So I would say it's totally up to everyone's mindset, and do the things that you love, because as you said, I mean, a lot of people struggle then building a business on jobs that they don't want to do. And then your passion all of a sudden is gone and you're just doing boring jobs that you don't like. And a couple of years later, you ask yourself, where I am now. I started this whole business as my passion. I loved it. And now I'm just doing shitty jobs that I don't like and I hate it. So it's always important to be cautious about what you're doing, which jobs you're doing. And I think what's also important is to find your inner core values. That really helped me to be just cautious and say, okay, what I'm standing for, what are my 3 core values? And if you guys don't know what core values are, you can just Google it. There is a list of hundreds of different words for what core values are. My core value is family. So everything or every job is that I get, or what I can do, is kind of balanced out with this family core values. So if I get a job offer from a band which took me, or which will take me 2 years on tour, I would say no, even if it's Guns N' Roses, because that's not what I stand for. And this is also how you become authentic, because all of your action will be in tune with your inner core values. And I think that's really important, because there are so many people who are just doing things because of money. But I can tell you this, money is definitely not the purpose or the driving force that you can stay in a business or job for a long term. Maybe short term, it's great to get a lot of money, but I guess, so I'm a big believer that money never makes you happy in the end. And again, if you read a lot, like myself, there are so many stories of successful people with a shitload of money, but it's more to life than just money. And there's an interesting study that I came across a couple of times now, which says the most happy people are those who earn like $85,000 a year. So that's kind of a value where you're really happy because you have a lot of money. You don't have to, or you have enough money that you don't have to care. But once it raises and you get, $1 million, 2 million, 10 millions, also the challenges will raise, because you get other problems, and probably you're not by yourself, like myself standing here in my so-called dream laboratory, and being a one-man show, but probably you have 30 people, 30 employees, and yeah, you make millions of dollars probably, but the pressure that you have as a CEO and what you have to deal with might push you in a direction that you initially didn't want to go. And then you're again in a position where you say, hey, this whole project started as my passion, but now I'm the CEO and I have to figure out stuff that I don't even like to do. Mm-hmm. And so always be cautious what you're doing, and be cautious what you're wishing for. Because just if you wish you want to have $10 million, eventually you will get it, but there will be a price to pay as well.
Actually, what my finding is also that money likes hustle. So money often comes to those who don't care about it too much. So that's right. That's also true. But actually, just referring to what you said before about choosing the rewarding and pleasant types of jobs, I have a feeling that they are often the most competitive ones. So actually, I had the same dilemma when I was finishing a PhD, because I have very technical education and I have masters in mathematics and physics, and I also
crazy.
crazy.
I can't even imagine how to do this.
um, actually, yeah, it was not very healthy lifestyle, I have to say. And I also have masters in psychology, and I feel like that's also why I went for neuroscience, because it was such a hybrid discipline that was, it incorporates 30 different disciplines in one, and it's so collaborative and it's so multifaceted discipline. But actually, after my PhD, that's also how I was perceived by recruiters and employers, that they perceived me as a person who would be an ideal material for a data scientist or some other specialist. And I didn't really feel like doing this. And I had that dilemma that, okay, it's either that I go do take a job that is very well paid day one, very safe, a lot of choice, and yeah, good status, but it's something that will make me quite miserable, because I knew deep in my heart I didn't want to spend my days in front of a computer programming. That's not what I wanted. Or I choose for another path, because I always felt if I could choose any job in the world, I would write books, and I would be an author. I would interact with a lot of people. I would solve some big problems, or at least I would try to approach some big problems, and I would work like one-on-one with people, and then close myself behind a closed door again, and then write again. So I would be switching between these two modes, like a lot of people on one hand, and like silence and creativity on the other hand. And that was my dream lifestyle. But I knew that the odds of becoming successful as an author are very low. So, and there is like this distribution of income that, it's like a scale-free distribution. So there is a very low number of successful people who we hear about, and there is very long tail of all those people who might be good, but they never made it to the public, to the public space, and they didn't become household names. They cannot really live off from what they do. Actually, according to Bookscan Nielsen, only 2% of all books pay themselves back. So at least 98 flop. And so this is this is pretty much the range, right? You have 2% chance of being successful and 98% chance of starving. And that was a big dilemma for me. And in the end, I decided to go for it, because I felt now is the time. Now I don't have a family yet. This is the time to try. And yeah, and I would just regret if I didn't. But I know that this is a very important decision, and this is hard dilemma. And maybe if I was in a different situation right now, then I would not have guts to try. So it's also a matter of whether or not you have the right conditions to try. Because indeed, like the jobs that are the coolest jobs, that are really rewarding, that usually they are desired by more people than there are seats. That's my feeling.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, that's in different fields like music. How many bands do you really know, and how many bands really got to this rock star stages, and how many bands are just touring or playing in local bands and no one local bars, and no one can live out from it. And that's probably the same in science as well. So you have these huge, widely renowned experts, but most likely, if you're a group leader, maybe you're sitting in a small lab and you have to write grants the whole day and hoping that you don't have to fire your PhD and try to get payment for them. So therefore, yeah, and I mean, with books, it's hard, it's crazy, right? 2%, it's nothing. And I see books not really as a stable income source, but more like becoming an authority in your field. Because if you're an author, this guy or this girl needs to know something about it because they wrote the book about it, which is kind of bullshit, because you can read 3 books about a topic and then just make a summary out of it, take your name on it, make a self-published book, and you're an author. So And this is, I think, how a lot of people approach it nowadays. It's like, okay, I'm a book author, therefore I can earn more money when I do coachings because I have this authority sign on it. So I think I see it this way with books. But yeah, it's hard. And as I said, I wouldn't advise anyone to jump into the cold water from one day to another day. And I agree with you what you said. It's all about in which situations are you right now? Are you alone by yourself, and are you flexible, or do you have already a family?
Mm-hmm.
Even then, good friend of mine, he's Dieter Kalt, he's an ex ice hockey pro ice hockey player, and he just started his own projects, and he has 4 kids. So still it's working, but then you need really a different mindset and a different view of the world, and you need a lot of self-esteem to say, okay, here I am, I love what I'm doing, and somehow I will figure it out, even though it's really stressful, because you need to get money somehow if you have to feed a family of 4 kids.
Yeah, that's indeed. Yeah, that's yeah, again, like as you said before, it's really it's very individual. Everyone has to make that accountancy for themselves. Yeah, I was blessed also that yeah, I'm in this situation when I can try, and that's also actually that's also one of the reasons why I developed courses for PhDs, because I know that many people don't have that luxury to have time to actually figure out what to do next and to try for time long enough, and they actually have to shrink this self-discovery parts to the minimum because they just cannot afford this to do the self-discovery for 2-3 years or whatever that takes. So yeah, that was exactly the motivation why I started the courses, indeed. Okay, and now maybe let's ask a more casual question.
Sure.
Since you were in the music industry, so you know, we know all these stars only from the covers of the magazine. So who is in your like among the people you met, who was the nicest person and who was the funniest person, like who you would like to be friends with?
I mean, they're all nice. That's the thing. When you start out, or when you're in the audience, you know, as a fan, and you see those bands like 3 meters above you on stage, it's like, okay, wow, they are my gods or whatever, and they are unhuman or whatever they are. At least this was for me when I was like 15 years old and I saw my first Metallica concert. It was like, wow, that's crazy. But once you talk to those guys and you tour with those guys, they are humans as well, right? So this is what touring kind of, or I learned from touring, is those guys have also problems, and even though they are these superstars, like the Prodigy, for example, who everyone thinks they are just crazy dudes, they are just normal guys who are talking about cooking before they go on stage, and then they have this weird and wild performance where you think, oh my gosh, they're crazy. So what I have seen a lot was people also struggling with this kind of job, because you know they also have a family at home, they are touring a lot. So I've seen a lot of guys who are just hanging out backstage every day before the show starts on Skype or on Zoom, and just talking to their families because they miss their kids. Or one famous artist, for example, I was on tour like in Vienna for 2 days, so there was one concert in Graz, and then there was a day off, and then there was another concert in Salzburg, and he just took a flight back to the UK to bring his son to the school and pick him up, and then he went back for the second gig. And I mean, this you can do if you can afford it, because he was a famous one. But normally that's really hard. And I mean, just touring, I talked to a lot of guys like Portugal the Man. They're really nice. They got famous with one song, but they said in the beginning they were just eating rice the whole tour because they didn't have any money. And if you tour with bands, I toured with a Swedish like heavy metal punk band, and we slept in a bus 9 people in a small bus, and we couldn't even shower for 3 days because they played so little punk clubs, and they didn't have any shower there. And so we slept in the car. And yeah, you just can, if you go to a speedway gas station, and probably they have a shower there, you can shower there. But that's the hard business, and they need to have a purpose. They love the things that they're doing, so therefore it's okay. But if you don't have a purpose and you just do music or playing in a band for money, forget it. You won't survive.
Yeah, actually, that's what you're saying is also consistent with what I observe. So actually, when I was starting these meetings, I also wondered if I should invite people who I know have some following already, and I felt maybe maybe they will not treat me too seriously. But then I realized that those are the nicest people, because also one of the reasons why they got where they are is because they were just nice and good with people. That's one factor for success that is quite universal.
Exactly.
So now I'm no longer stressed before these episodes because I know that these are just super nice people. So that's changed my perception.
Exactly. There is no reason why not be friendly. I mean, either you're an asshole or not. And if you don't want to interview people who just have an ego problem, and all the others have no reason why
And
they're not friendly.
I also have a question about the times when you were doing your podcast. And that's actually my private question, since I'm now also interviewing people. So since you're much more experienced interviewer than me, then I have a question for you. Since I feel like every interviewer has their personal style, and like I myself, I didn't have any formal training in journalism, so I
Me
had
neither.
to develop some style. And I think, one thing I know is I know a little bit about how the human brain works. So I know that, you either think with your left hemisphere or with your right hemisphere, and one of them speaks to your like logic mind and the other speaks to your emotions. So, and I always feel like I want to hear the truth. Like I want to like the interviewees to be real and to be truthful and to be genuine, which is, I mean, by naturally comes. But actually, what I like doing is basically asking questions that speak either to right or left hemisphere, and just so basically change the tone almost every question, and actually disorient my guest a little bit, so that they at some point completely, they just lose their posture in a sense, and they start speaking out what they really think. So I think that's my personal style so far.
That's a style of a researcher, I guess, because that's already too technical for me. I had no clue what I was doing. I had never interviewed anyone before, and the first interview was Kat Bentsova, who is the tour photographer of Guns N' Roses and AC/DC. And I mean, I was nervous. I had no idea about the technical stuff, how to set up a podcast, nor did I have a clue how to do an interview. And still, after 100 interviews, this is one of the most downloaded ones. So I guess just be kind and be true and be authentic. I don't think you need any strategy to kind of, experiment with different tones or whatever, just to get the truth out of people. So I have learned from my podcast, I always had a couple of questions beforehand, which were always the same. Like I had 7 questions I ask every guest, and then I interviewed, even though they were all concert photographers, but they all had kind of a specific topic to the interview attached. So one was tour photographer, one was someone who self-published a book, the other was someone who was just shooting not famous bands in small clubs and so on. So it differed a little bit. But what I found out is the best interviews are the ones, something like we are doing right now, because you give me feedback and I give you feedback. And then it's kind of, it's not a monologue, because sometimes people are just asking questions and you as a guest you're answering, and then there is the next question without any connection to it. And I think it's important, and I really like these interviews like we are doing, where you give feedback and you tell how you see it and what your experience is, and then I can come up with my experiences again. And also what helps probably is if they don't know the questions beforehand. So this is only a few of my interview guests said they don't want to hear the questions before, because then you have this natural flow of a conversation. It's not like, someone gets the question and probably write it down beforehand and then just reading it out because they're too nervous, which is also okay, because not everyone is feeling safe in front of a microphone. And if it's your first time doing it, I mean, you will be nervous, that's for sure. But for me, this format works well if I don't know the questions, and it's just a great conversation, and everyone tries to, help the audience and be true and be authentic. So I don't think you need any technical experiments to get the truth out of someone.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, so far I hear really good stuff about this initiative. So let's hope so. And yeah, actually, I think it's good to be, like, what I feel is it's very important to be present. So just
Right.
forget about the external world. Just focus solely on the person that you're talking to, and just suppress all the other thoughts and just be there in the moment, and then react to the questions and be authentically curious, and then it sort of flows by itself. That's my feeling.
Exactly. And the podcast that I'm listening to and I love are the ones from Rich Roll or Joe Rogan. And these are guys who are doing like 2 hour 30 interviews. And what they're doing is they're just sitting with cool guys together and talking about stuff. And so probably they have kind of a narrative going through the interview, but it's all about, like, being authentic and helping the audience out and sharing the experiences. So I think that's probably the key to have a good interview.
Actually, I adore Joe Rogan.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Love in general, I think he's
Right.
one of the favorites, like celebrities out there, I think. Yeah.
And he makes a lot of money with podcasting. I guess he got a several million contract with Spotify now. So his show is only showing on Spotify, I guess. And therefore he had a huge contract.
But he didn't really need it, I think, because already in the times when he was on TV, he was the host of this Fear Factor stuff.
Okay.
20
Yeah,
years
yeah.
ago.
He already has enough.
Yeah,
But still, he's doing the things that he really loves, it seems,
yeah,
because the podcast, I mean, even though he gets money now, but probably he didn't get any money before episode 1000 or whatever he is now. And you have to imagine doing 1000 or more or 1500 podcast episodes. I mean, that's insane.
yeah. Yeah, he clearly loves what he's doing. And what I like about him also is that he is not afraid of any topic. Like he can
Right.
take on, he could take on a president, he could take on, professor in certain narrow discipline, and he doesn't have any boundaries. Like this is like one of these people who, and he's also been to ultimate fighting
Yeah, something like this.
championships, right? So he's been to so many, like he doesn't like, he treats the world like a like a like a playground, like
Right. And he can do it.
yeah, that's
And
amazing of him.
yeah, and he can do it because it's his show. He doesn't need to, say something or don't say something because he's paid from someone. It's like it's his show. He can do whatever he wants, and that's the great thing um, if you have your own project. So as I said, I had this ebook for $80 PDF, which is insane. Would I have gone with the publisher, which is anyhow not realistic with 70 pages, but they would have never allowed this, because then you have strict guidelines what you have to follow. But if you do it by yourself and say, hey, I'm just experimenting, that's me, that's my homepage, maybe people are interested in, and if they get value out of it, awesome. And the more personal you can get this sort of project, the better it is, because I'm now a one-man show. I have my homepage. I get directly the money if someone pays my course. I don't have to pay anyone. I don't have any employees. I don't, being not a part of a company. And I think that's the cool thing, because you can do whatever you want, and that's me, and that's my podcast, and I can talk whatever I want to, and there is no boundaries. And this is what those guys like Joe Rogan are doing as well.
Yeah, actually, some people are in trouble when no one tells them what to do, and some people are in trouble when someone tells them what to do. And I
Sure.
think we are both we are both in the second group.
Right.
Yeah. I felt it very like painfully in my PhD also. At some point I was like, I will never ever have a boss again. It's just not for me.
Yeah, and you don't understand what they are talking to you, and you say, hey, probably we can do this a little bit different because this has this and this benefits, and they tell you, no, we're doing this for the last 20 years, we're not going to change it because that's how it is. And you just, man, that's not working. And
Yeah.
everyone is just doing the same thing like years ago, even if it's not working. And we had a lot of these discussions, and it was really stressful for me because the relationship between my boss and myself wasn't the best one, because I had too many things to say, which was not really beneficial for me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, let's not get there. It's like we could talk for hours. But actually now I would like to still ask you a few questions about what
Sure.
you're doing now, because like datpreneur sounds really awesome. And so first of all, what do you do? So how this datpreneur project looks like, and for
Yeah.
whom is this project, and how also, that's also another question from the audience, how does your week look like?
Yeah, let's start with my week. My wife Lynn is a medical doctor, and she just started to work again after maternity leave. So what we decided on is that I will spend even more time at home with the kids, even though I'm the last 7 years at home. But I will take over this part a little bit more, and yeah, be more cautious. Even though in this these times like COVID, it's really unpredictable what happens, because then the kindergarten writes you an email and says, yeah, there is probably a positive case and all the kids have to stay at home, and then boom, 10 days you have the kids at home. So you have to figure this out. But actually what I'm doing is most likely taking care of the kids. And what I'm also teaching in this dadpreneur project, or what I want to help people, is to become a better version of themselves. Because I have figured out that if you're stressed, being it from work or from your business or whatever it is, it totally correlates into your family life as well. So if you're stressed, your kids will be stressed, and they will push all the buttons in you that you don't want to get pushed, and you will get angry, you will get nervous. And that's really something that I was shocked sometimes. I mean, it was not, I'm not slapping my kids or whatever, God beware, but sometimes you just lose your temper because there is a lot going on, and if the day is stressful, and then the kids are doing their stuff and just playing anyhow. And so I figured out what helps me is if I install kind of habits, or call it biohacks or whatever they are, like meditation, like breath working. I figured out a way how I can work out 4 to 5 times a week without going to the gym, because I don't have the time. But if I get a pull-up bar in my garden, I'm happy, and I can do my exercises there. So most likely I'm taking care of the kids, and when I find the time, I'm doing my personal project. So right now it's kind of probably 1 hour per day, which is not much, but with 2 kids, there's a lot to do. And I always thought before I had kids, I can be in the living room with my laptop and the kids are playing next to me, I can work. Forget it. Everyone who has kids knows this. That's not going to work. The time you start opening your laptop, one of the kids will be there and say, computer, and push around. So this is not going to work. Yeah, so that's basically it. Family life as a stay-at-home dad, and if I find time, I will work on my projects. So therefore, it's a little bit slowed down with dadpreneur. But in general, it's like basically how to get the best out of you with these little hacks, I would say, on a daily basis. And this can be, as I said, mental clues like breath work, meditation. This can be nutrition, what do you eat, kind of lifestyle tips for dads, I would say.
But actually, I'm curious, what type of activity is this? So do you, how do you interact with other dads?
Yeah, so I have a mastermind group called the Rockstar Dads, and we are 8 dads. All of them have kids, all of them have their own business. So this is an internal mastermind group, and we help each other out getting jobs. For example, I just did a webinar for 500 internal employees of a big bank, or I was a speaker on an online conference about new work for the future, and I was talking about home office and how I set up the studio here and what I'm doing. And how I reach that is with my homepage. So there's matthiashomba.com. You can download a free PDF with the 5 dadpreneur habits, the most important ones, like how can I be more productive? And I found out I spend a lot of time in front of my computer, also when I had already my business, but by the end of the day, I had the feeling I didn't do anything. So there are specific strategies like Pomodoro technique. I don't know if you know about this, where you sit down like 25 minutes and you focus on the work, or it's 20 minutes, I guess, and then it's 5 minutes break, and then you just repeat these cycles. And it's crazy what you can do in 20 minutes or 25 minutes if you just do deep work, focus, and get all the distractions out. And that's also a mindset thing. So if you just spend the whole day on Facebook, you won't get things done.
Right. Actually, one trivia about Pomodoro I could share here is that there was some research to investigate what is the perfect scheme, what is the most efficient way of switching between work and rest in Pomodoro. And actually, surprisingly, what came out from this research was that the best rhythm is 52 minutes work and 17 minutes rest. And I tried it.
52 minutes work and 17.
17, yeah.
17, okay.
I tried and it really works, at least for me. That's an interesting effect. Okay, so can I now ask you a few difficult questions?
Sure. Just to come back to Pomodoro. So I think Pomodoro really depends on what kind of work you're doing. So if you're kind of a creative and you need time to get into the flow, if you're a painter and you have to, stop every 20 minutes, probably that's not working for you. If you're used to deep work and being concentrated, you can go with longer series. And I also have for myself the schedule 50 minutes and like 10 minutes off. So this is something that works for me.
Actually, deep work is, I have a feeling that deep work is also something you have to actively train, because in the world we live,
right,
like everything tries to just drag us out of this state of mind. So,
exactly.
And like the attention span in humans is constantly dropping, and it already dropped below, like the mean attention span dropped below 10 seconds and currently is at 8 seconds, and it's like 2 times less than 20 years ago.
Right.
And for comparison, a goldfish, an attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds.
I see.
So we are already
worse than a goldfish.
Okay, and so my question about like, I would like to just ask you briefly about the problems you see in today's like fatherhood. So actually, first of all, like we live in times when social media often has more impact on our kids than us as parents. So do some men in your network feel like failed fathers?
Not that I know of, but I guess everyone is struggling. I just had a talk to Dieter, this guy who I told you with the 4 kids, and he said he has a 10-year-old girl, and everything she says is no. Even he's not asking anything. So it's just no, no, no. And they are completely like on confrontation all the time. My daughter is 4. I get a glimpse how it can be if they get into this this age, like 10 or puberty. But it's still fine. So what I have learned is don't read all the books about being the best parents. And this is true in, I guess, in all fields. Like I'm interested in nutrition. So there is, for example, one part or one kind of people who are saying the best is plant-based because this is what we need. This is how we eat, and just not a lot of meat, but most likely plant-based. And there is a lot of research going on why this should be the best diet. On the contrary, there are people who say carnivore diet is the best, where you just eat meat and drink water. You don't eat any fruits, you don't eat any vegetables. There is a lot of research going on why this is the best. So you have to choose. And it's the same, I guess, with with being a parent, because I'm struggling, honestly saying, also a lot, because I don't know what is right and what is wrong. So there is this view that, you know, you are just there for your kids, and if something bad happens, you just take them and show them the borders, so to speak, but they should do whatever they want because they are creative beings, and whatever it is they want to do, they can do. If they don't want to go to bed, they don't go to bed. On the other hand, you have this strict hierarchy where you say, okay, the parent or the father is kind of the boss of the whole family, and what he says needs to be done. And I think every family has to come up with their own rules. And some people tell me their kids are not allowed to watch TV for the whole week, just on the weekends. My kids do watch TV because this is something I'm not really so strict about. I don't find it so important. So that's a hard question, but I guess everyone needs to find their own way to do it. And it's important that both, like the father and the mother, sits in the same boat and have the same conversation and the same mindset and the same views about it, because otherwise it's just becoming stressful. Because if someone has different views than the other partner, the kids get easily confused. And you too, because you're saying something and your partner says something totally different. So that's a hard one.
Actually, I feel that being a father these days is difficult for multiple reasons. Like, one reason is because I have a feeling that fathers are often neglected. For instance, if you see advertisement for parents, usually there is an assumption that parent means mother. So like fathers are not as target for advertisement almost ever. And I feel that there are also more deep problems. Like, I'm Polish, and like back in Poland, I myself, I worked on one project that was aimed at helping fathers to improve their situation. It was actually 12 years ago. I was still a master's student in medical physics back in Warsaw. And actually, um, I was doing a research project that was basically, that the purpose was to design a new method to detect orientation on the basis of eye tracking experiment. And the reason was because in Poland, it's often the case that women sue their husbands and accuse them of pedophilic tendencies, just because they want to win over the kids during the divorce. And they often succeed because there is no way for the father to defend themselves.
That's an ugly way to do it.
Yeah, but that happens, and that was the reason for the project, that that they try to come up with a solution to give fathers a chance to defend themselves. And in the end, I started this project. I could not finish because the equipment was not there on time. So I had to switch my the topic of my thesis, unfortunately. But as far as I'm concerned, they continue with the project, and I'm familiar with the problem, so I can tell that there are multiple problems that fathers have to struggle with. I'm not necessarily, I'm not sure if this is a global problem, the one that I just described, but I have but I have a feeling that there are so many different aspects that you have to struggle with, also depending where you are in the world. So I'm curious also, what type of problems do you guys discuss? Like, what is the scope? So
yeah, for us, it's from business to personal things. So, for example, last week I was posting. We have a WhatsApp group as well, so either we post text messages there or we do speech things. And what I was struggling a lot was, for me, success was always defined as having a lot of or earning a lot of money. So I think that's a common thing, how people see themselves. I'm successful if I earn money. Or a lot of money, and I always had a number in mind, and if I could reach this would be awesome and I would be successful. And what I have learned is that that's not the best way, or it's not even a good way to see it, because everyone needs to find out what success means to him. So I can say I'm a super successful father because I'm grateful that I'm in this situation that I can be for my kids the whole time. Who else can this? Another will say, okay, I'm earning like $10,000 a month, so therefore I'm successful. And I was struggling with this, and I was posting in the WhatsApp group, and I got a lot of advice from other dads who have already like older kids, like in their 18th or 20s, and they said, hey, the best decision that I made was to be at home for the kids, because this relationship that you built, you cannot get back. So once it's done and the kids are older, that's it. And money is just a byproduct. And then my eyes opened for it, and I thought, okay, I mean, sure, money is important, but money is not everything, and money cannot make you happy. So therefore, switch your perception. Say, what is it to be successful? And for me, successful is now really having this extra time with my kids and doing the things that I love, working on the projects that I'm passionate. And being honest, I'm not a millionaire with this project, but this was not the purpose at all. I mean, I'm grateful that I can make a living, and I sold, like, what was it? I think it's like $150,000 for the last 6 years with the course, which might be success for someone or might be not. But I think for me it is, because this is a course that I did everything by myself, and I helped a lot of people worldwide. So, and probably coming back just shortly with the general problems that dads have, when I go to kindergarten and talk to the dads who bring the little kids, they all say the best time they had in life was when they were at home from work with the kids, like a month or so. There is this kind of father month in Austria, because this is really when I connected to my kid. And you will also see that this connection also shifts your relationship. If you're just a father who is there on the weekend because you work the whole week, you might have a different relationship to your kids compared to someone who is home the whole day and plays with them, and bring them to bed or wake them up or bring them breakfast. And I think the whole issue is that socially it's not really widely accepted that men get a lot of time with the family. I guess it's still like, as a man, you need to bring the money in, or the career is the most important thing, and there is nothing wrong with it. If someone says career is the most important thing, and now in this situation, the company that I can get the CEO or a management position, and it's good for my family because my wife decided to stay at home with the kids, that's also fine. So everyone needs to find his or her own way how to deal with it. And for me, it was the way that I say, for me, it's the most important to stay at home. But this is not an all-in-one solution. It's like an individual solution that worked out for me, but it doesn't need to work out for others.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, where do you want to bring this project? So what's the plan for Datpreneur?
Yeah, good question as well, because as I said, it's just in the beginning. And one plan that I have in mind is to do another podcast, because I love doing podcasts and interviewing dadpreneurs. So meaning dads who have their own business and figured out a way to spend more time with the kids. And I'm curious by myself, because not everyone needs to have an online business. So there are probably hundreds or thousands of different approaches how to spend more time with the kids. And I want to build a platform where people can listen to the podcast and also get motivation from other dads and learn from them. So like the same approach as the How to Become a Rockstar Photographer podcast, learn from the best in the field and adapt it for yourself. And if someone is interested, awesome, just listen to it. This would be one way to do it. Another way would be not only online, but probably also offline, giving mentorship or coaching to companies. Because this is a big issue right now with dads and being at home. And I've seen already that companies are interested in these topics as well. So podcast, companies, and also homepage with, content, blog posts, stuff like this.
Yeah, that's a very, very good niche. I can imagine that companies have great interest in helping their employees.
They definitely should. And nowadays it's even harder for them, right? Because with all these home office approaches, they don't have so much control over it. They need to have happy employees, because otherwise it won't work out on the long run.
Yeah, I have a feeling that this type of problem, like this is actually probably hard to grasp, in a sense that it's hard to convert it into like one product, because it's such a broad problem, and it's hard to just come up with this, one solution. It's not algorithm how to deal with this.
There is no one solution. I think what you can do is show them ways how people already did it, and so people can either copy the blueprint or try it by themselves. But then not everyone has the same passion, so it's probably not working for you if you're not interested in fashion. And though this guy is a fashion designer, then it's not your way. But it should be more motivational, inspirational, and just learn what you can do. And in the online world or online business, there are a lot of different methods, being it, starting your own t-shirt business to shipping stuff on Amazon.
Right. Yeah, actually, it's probably similar with career advisory, because also I can't give anyone an algorithm. That's only tools, and then you have to work with those tools. That's how it works. So yeah, probably the same class of problem.
Right.
Okay, so I have one more question for you,
Sure.
which is, do you know DJ Tiesto?
Yes.
You know
By
DJ
name.
Tiesto?
Yeah, but by name.
By name. Yeah, I'm asking because actually several years ago, actually my fiance left me before the wedding, and then I made a resolution that now I have my expectations. So the next time DJ Tiesto has to play on my wedding, otherwise I will not show up.
Good one.
So yeah, if you know someone who knows
DJ Tiesto, I'm not into DJs so much, but I will have a look. I know at least a couple of guys who were touring with the big DJs.
Right, doesn't hurt to ask. So.
Sure, always ask. It's that's also a superpower, I think, what people need to use, like just ask questions. And that's what you were doing with the podcast, or I did with the podcast. You just ask questions and you learn from answers. And if you don't ask, you won't get any answers. So that's rule number one: ask, and learn from the best.
Okay, great. Actually, I think I could just keep on going and ask you more questions.
We are.
We ran out of time.
We should reach the 2 hour 30 from Joe Rogan.
We are reaching the Joe Rogan's level already. So.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Perfect. But so it was very, very, very interesting talking to
Thank
you
so
today,
much.
and really amazing, amazing stuff. And thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, if you guys who are watching this would like to reach out to thatpreneur himself, I'm sure he's open.
Anytime.
So find him on Twitter, LinkedIn, and other media, and
Right.
of course check out his project thatpreneur.com.
No, it's matthiashomba.com. It's a
Okay,
personal brand.
it's a
Thatpreneur.com is already gone, so there is
Oh,
no page working,
yeah.
but no working page. But someone got the URL, and I couldn't figure out. So I tried to figure out who it is and probably get it. But yeah, still, I mean, there are a couple of guys who name themselves Thatpreneurs. So that's not a unique thing, and so therefore I go with my personal brand, matthiashomba.com.
Okay, I'll link this website
Awesome.
in the description, so please check it out, guys. And thank you so much, Matthias, for
Thank
joining
you.
us today.
My pleasure. Was great talking to you.
Great, absolutely great talking to you. And I wish you all the best with Thatpreneur.
Thank you. You too. I will try to figure out DJ Tiesto. So you already have someone in mind who you want to marry?
No, that's next.
What's the time frame?
No, you have 10 years. I didn't even start looking. I mean, I started from the difficult part.
Right. So once you have Tiesto on board, everything else is easy.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's keep in touch.
All
Natalia,
right.
thanks so much again for having me. It was a
Thank you
pleasure.
so much. And
Thank you.
have a good evening. And
Thank you.
talk to you some other time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.